Hi, I'm Bryn Edwards from Vegetables WA, the benchmarking lead, and this is Paul Omaday from Palm Farm, a senior farm consultant. Today we're really going to dig into operational costs and understanding how from that you can work out which vegetables are your rock stars and making you some real money, and which ones are not quite making you the money that you thought they might be. So, Paul, tell me a bit more about operating costs.
Good question, Bryn. And operating costs are basically split up into three ways through the benchmarking project. You've got variable costs, wages, and fixed costs. So they are the three key areas we're focusing on in terms of vegetable production.
Okay, so can you give us some more examples of what are the fixed costs and the variable costs?
Sure. So the three major areas: the variable, wages, and fixed. So as a summary, the variable costs are anything to do with what you actually produce as an output. So things like fertiliser, chemicals, fuel. So pretty much they're variable because the more of these you use generally changes the output that you produce, or the less of them that you use. The wages are pretty much fixed, but we call them permanent and casual. And then the fixed costs are those things that are pretty much there. I was saying to Bryn that the fixed costs are things that are there when you get out of bed every morning, you have to pay irrespective of how much you grow. So fixed costs are things like admin, which is accounting and consultancy fees, electricity and gas, rates, probably some of the key areas.
So most of these figures you'd find in your annual profit and loss?
Most definitely. These will all be broken down in your profit and loss from either your accounting package or your accountant's profit and loss figures in tax time.
Okay, so how do you go from here to actually understanding which vegetable line has made you some real money and which one's not quite made you the money you thought?
That's a really good question, and through the project we've developed a very simple spreadsheet that can allow any grower to actually simply go through these costs and allocate them a percentage. So what we've done is created something similar to this, and you would have, say, veg line 1, veg line 2, and then allocate any of these costs across them. So you might say that veg line 1 is quite a high user of fertiliser. So for my total fertiliser costs, I think veg line 1 actually uses 45%. I'll add another one here. Veg line 2 is not as big a user, it might use 30%. And then veg line 3 is obviously the difference, 25.
Super. So if you had 100 grand of fertiliser, then we would soon know 45 grand was spent on veg 1, 30 grand was spent on veg 2, and 25 grand was spent on veg 3.
Exactly right.
Super. So then by completing this in the super little simple straightforward spreadsheet we created,
yep, and
filling out these percentages, you can soon work out how much each veg line actually cost you.
Yep, this is a very quick spreadsheet to do. It's often not broken down into the accounting packages in most cases, but this is very simple and quick and easy to do. And the other way to actually do it is to actually look at income. So for example, income, veg line 1 might be 50%. Veg line 2 might be 30%, and veg line 3 might be 20% of your total income. So it's very easy for a grower to actually allocate and say, yeah, well, I think that's about right. 50% of my income comes from veg 1, so therefore my fert actually is probably about 50% of my costs of fert.
Yeah.
So they can allocate it very simply and easily. It's not going to be exact, but it'll be a lot better than what we currently got.
Indeed. And so very quickly you can start to get a figure of how much your veg line has cost against how much money you actually made from that veg line. And then all of a sudden you can see which ones have actually delivered the profit and which ones haven't.
Exactly, and this is one of the key areas of businesses that have to actually get into this level of analysis. Because how do you know that veg line 1, while it might be 50% of your income, is just making you enough money? Can you allocate your same costs or resources to something else?
If you would like to work out which of your vegetable lines is making the most money and which ones are not quite making you as much money as you anticipated, then please click the link and we'll send you the simple spreadsheet that Paul's just been talking about.